All right. Welcome, guys, to another episode of Just Langa. Today, we are talking about unleash your thought leadership with audio marketing. Okay.
What
Um,
in the hell is audio marketing, Nina? I'm like,
exactly, right?
it's like,
What?
what?
Okay. So today we're talking about unleash your thought leadership with audio marketing. Good question, I mean, because I don't know either. And that's why we're having this episode, because you can
Okay.
actually unleash your thought leadership with audio marketing. Who would have thought, right? So today is our 60-second episode on Just Langa. So welcome one, welcome all. Let us know who's in the house. If you are a regular popcooner, say hello, popcoon. And if it is your first time here with us, let us know. Just type in noob in the comment, okay? Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from, and please share with us what is it that you want to get. Like for me and Amien, obviously, what on earth is audio marketing? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
today it is unleash your thought leadership with audio marketing, happening right here on the Just Langa show with me, Nina, and
And I'm Amin here. This is our 60-second episode, right, Nina?
yes, definitely. Now, while we're waiting for your replies, if you're new to the show, Just Longa is where we interview the movers and shakers of the world to help you guys grow your authority, impact as a thought leader, business influencer, and authority in your respective industries. In other words, we are Popcorn and we build Southeast Asia's business influencers and thought leaders. So if this is something that excites you, you want to follow us on all our social media. Okay.
Yep.
Now, coming
Come and
up,
follow us. Come and join us.
yes, definitely. Coming up next week, we have on Thursday, 26th August, we've got Rancia Sanvira, who is a TikTok influencer with 3.6 million followers. 3.6 million followers, guys. And what she does is she talks about child parenting and marriage counseling. And she's the founder of Mama Life. And she's going to be sharing about how she built or she grew her business using TikTok. So that's going to be really exciting because TikTok is one of the fastest growing what you call it, social media right now. Okay, so if this is something that you guys want to learn, definitely you want to follow us on all our social media. But tonight we are talking about growing your authority, growing your influence using audio marketing. All right. Now, what is audio marketing? Again, I have no idea. That's why we're having it tonight. That's why we've got our speakers so that we can understand this. And what is it
Mm-hmm.
that you guys want to ask? What is it that you guys want to learn? Let us know in the comment section. For you, I mean, apart from what is audio marketing, what is it that you want to learn? What is it that you want to
I,
get
I
from today?
I would love to explore thought leadership tonight. Because and how do we actually kind of like merge audio marketing and thought leadership? Because I have no idea what audio marketing is. So I'm excited about tonight. I just want to know more about it.
Yeah, and we talk
Mm-hmm.
about thought leadership so much, but I would love to hear it from a different angle, a different perspective, which is from audio
Exactly.
marketing kind of thing. So I actually want to learn. I also want to understand what I'm hearing. There's an audio revolution happening. What is
Mm-hmm.
it? I have no idea what it is. So I'm very excited to know that. And on top of that, is audio even more powerful than a show? And if so, why? Because I read that somewhere that podcasts have the power to create a more intimate experience with your audience. And of course, how does
Mm-hmm.
one grow thought leadership? Through something that they can't see but hear, because we've got our show. So I'm just curious about that. Now, what about you
So
guys?
when
What is it?
wait, hold on, hold on. I'm just curious to know when you say show, what do you mean by show? Is this what we are doing
When
now?
I
Is
say
show?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
we're doing now is a show because people can see us, they tune in and they watch the video. So when I say
Mm-hmm.
show, I mean video. But
Okay.
apparently you can create a more intimate experience through audio, like a podcast or something like that. So definitely something I want to learn from. Now, what about you guys? What is it that you guys want to learn? I cannot seem to see my LinkedIn post video here. So, I mean, are there any questions from people? But in the meantime, type in if you have any questions whatsoever. Okay.
I just want to say hi to Ridwan, hi to Liana. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pankaj is watching. I'm just
Oh,
gonna wave
Pankaj
to
is
Pankaj as
here.
well.
Hey.
Hey Pankaj, good to see you as well. Yeah, so I think there's a
And
lot of
they're tuning in
questions.
from LinkedIn.
We have people from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. So I'm like having like three devices right now. It's like looking at all the pieces at this
Yeah,
moment.
I need to get all these devices now. Okay, cool. All right. So today, if you walk down, okay, I mean, get this. If you walk down the street, you'll see
Mhm.
people soaking in information through their phones. Commuters, multitasking with audio device on trains, planes, and automobiles. And on top of that, Pankaj is tuning in, right? He listens to podcasts. That's how, and everybody's listening to it while we're at the gym. Believe it or not, today, audiobook publishing is growing 3 times faster than any type of publishing. And 33% of people are listening to podcasts every day. Weekly. So, which brings us to these questions. What is the audio revolution happening right now? What is vocal thought leadership? How does this impact my brand and my business? Is podcasting and audiobook publication a good fit for me and my business? And how can we position our voice to reach the millions of people who are listening? So, all those questions happening right now, and you are about to get the inside scoop on producing and publishing in-demand audio content to unleash your message and thought leadership to the world. So are you guys ready? If you think this is so useful, please tag everyone that you think it's going to make a difference to, and let's share this message out. In the meantime, once you're done with it, you want to get your pen and notebook, because that's what we do. We have that on standby.
Yep.
So you guys can write all these information down, okay? And once you're done with that, yes, what is it?
By the way, before we go to that, I just want to say hi to Ridwan, hi to Malcolm, hi to Jocelyn. Welcome to the show, guys. Good to see all of
Hey,
you.
Malcolm, you're here.
It's
right.
been a while since the last time I saw Malcolm, right?
Yes, Jocelyn, welcome. All right, so our guest tonight, shall I introduce you to the special guest that we have tonight? She is an award-winning and internationally acclaimed speaker, audiobook publisher, corporate podcast producer, and vocal leadership expert who has been featured on media outlets the likes of ABC, Inc.com, Huffington Post, and Forbes. Now, Tina's first podcast, the Start Something Show, sounds kind of like the Just Slugger Show, was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 35 podcasts for entrepreneurs. Tina's company, Twin Flame Studio, amplifies the influence of brands and leaders through high ROI audiobook and podcasting solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are ready to unleash your thought leadership with audio marketing, then please give it up for, say hello to Tina Dietz.
Hi, Tina.
Hey,
hi,
Tina,
hi.
welcome.
Hey guys, thank you for that awesome warm welcome.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much. We worked a couple of months to get you here, right? So we're very, very fortunate. Thank you so much for saying yes to us. We're so excited to have you.
How can I say no to your energy, Nina? I mean, it's really early here where I am in the US, and I'm just like, oh wow, maybe I don't need coffee. This would be great.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. First things first, Tina, in your own words, can you share with us, how is it that you got started? Can you share with us a little bit about you and how you got started in doing this thing in this area?
It's a little bit of a crazy story. If you talk with most entrepreneurs, we've never had a straight line between where we started and where we ended up. So if you had told me 15 years ago or even 10 years ago that I would end up owning a, company that operates internationally, producing podcasts and audiobooks and working with leaders from around the world on their voice and their impact on their teams and their communities, I would have thought you were nuts. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur. I grew up in my parents' business. So my business was like a younger brother or a little sister. And I was always really aggravated that my parents had this business that competed with, they should have been paying attention to me, of course, as far as I was concerned. And so I never wanted to own a business. I became a therapist. I worked in universities. I worked with young kids and international students. And I absolutely loved it. But I ended up just having that entrepreneurial spark that you get when you grow up kind of in a business. So I ended up coming back and coaching entrepreneurs, coaching business owners, CEOs in about 20 different industries as a coach and a consultant for a long time in about 8 different countries over the course of years. But I got really tired of the coaching industry. I got tired of, being the only one. And I'm not a big fan of like just digital products and things like that. I like the interaction. I like the deep creative process. I like working with teams and people to create deep, lasting, transformational change. So I had my own podcast. I had been a voice actor on the side as a hobby. I've never met a microphone I didn't like. And I
Wow.
do admit I like the sound of my own voice. I do. So
Awesome.
I'm in the
We
minority.
need to talk about that.
Yes. But so that actually led me to podcast production for other people because I had had success with my show and was in that space, saw opportunity. And I also had saw an opportunity in the market. All of my friends, my colleagues, my clients were producing books, doing bestseller campaigns. We still see that today. It's very common to build your authority to write a book. But I
Mhm.
didn't see anybody doing an audiobook version of their book, which I thought was just crazy because the audiobook market was, growing and growing and growing and growing. And I saw
Mhm.
this kind of audiobook revolution
Yeah.
or renaissance
Yeah.
happening. So I decided to do some market research and I did a survey and I got such a strong response. We decided to pilot services, and within a year, the audio had just taken over my entire enterprise. And so I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not going to say no to an opportunity. I decided to go ahead and double down on the industry, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. So very quickly, we have pretty much doubled the company every year for the last 5 years. And we're now considered one of the premier services in the niches that we're in because of our white glove service, because of the depths that we're willing to go, and because of we're willing to make sure that we are right at the forefront of the industry in terms of quality, distribution, and providing high ROI on our services.
All right. So just to be clear, so that everybody who's listening understands exactly what it is that you do, what is it that you do today and how do you work with your clients? What sort of services do you offer and what is it that you do not offer?
Yeah, so we have two distinct divisions of our company. What we're really known for on both sides is creating this deep trust and growing those trusted relationships, both with business owners, consultants, and CEOs. That is more on the audiobook side of the company. We work with their publishers, we work with them to get their voices onto their own audiobooks or to work with professional narrators to make sure that their audiobooks really shine and really are highly representative. They're going to be able to use these audiobooks for years and years and years in their marketing. And then we show them the different ways to use their audiobooks in their book marketing overall. So a lot of times we coordinate with their marketing team or with their publisher to make sure that their audiobook is well represented in everything that they're doing and how to use your audiobook as an asset. And that is also represented. How do you use the audio as an asset on the podcasting side of the house as well? So on the podcasting side of our company, we work with businesses, companies, organizations, large nonprofits, the organizations that know that they're developing deep, long-lasting relationships with their clients, with their audience, and with their industry. And so that relationship, these visionary companies need a visionary voice. They need to have the strong voice relationship and the intimacy that you talked about before with their audience, with their clients. And podcasting is a way for them to develop those relationships and expand their relationships outside of their usual small markets into a bigger conversation. And we can talk about kind of how that happens and all the different ways. But this type of podcasting is not, it is certainly to entertain, it is certainly to inform, but also has a strong marketing component, not so much in like a funnel. It's not funnel marketing. It's not, we're doing a product and it's going to lead to a sale. This is brand marketing. It's influence. It's relationship marketing. And it is heavily content marketing. So we can break all of that down as far as you want to go and how all that works together.
Okay, I'm probably going
to medium.
My God, you just like triggered me because I'm probably going to throw half my script in questions now because of what you just said. I mean, you got to take it over now.
Well,
we can go anywhere you want.
I was in that situation before as well, because I kind of relate to what you said earlier, that you were in the coaching industry, then suddenly you decided to go to the creative side, because I used to be focusing a lot more on the coaching side and training side as well, before I go into this whole social media thing. So let's just to be clear, you are not a marketing agency, right?
No, we're not a marketing agency.
Exactly.
We are a production. I like to say we're a leadership and influence company cleverly masquerading as an audio production house.
We
So,
understand. We
yes.
absolutely understand, kind of thing. So we're masquerading as a LinkedIn guru at the moment, kind of thing. So we understand because of our background in coaching, right? Okay, so Amit,
Mhm.
go on.
And what are some of the challenges that you personally face when you started doing this? I'm just curious to know, because this is like a totally new field for me. Would you like to share that? What are some of the,
Some of the challenges that happened.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I was going through a very challenging time, and it was actually those challenges that spurred me to do this. I found myself in a position where I had to become the sole financial support for my family. And I was also providing a lot of the emotional and the parenting. So I was playing a lot of roles simultaneously. And I wanted to shift to a point where I could have a team and I could have a scalable company that was truly going to make a difference in the world, but at the same time wasn't dependent on my personality trading time for money every single day.
Mm.
And I also really didn't want to water down what I saw was possible by doing digital courses or ebooks or things like that. There's a place for all of that in the market, but I like to go deep. And that's my preference, and why waste it? So some of the challenges that happened were first just funding the business, because this was all bootstrapped initially. The other is that I was actually going through some health challenges off and on throughout this entire process. And it's funny, you talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of us deal with some chronic issues, deal with a lot of there's mental health issues that come up a lot in the workplace. There's all kinds of things, right? And so everybody is doing this amazing work, and and social media can really just kind of make everybody look like I'm having the most amazing life. This is just fantastic. Aren't I fabulous? And at the same time, in the background, there's all kinds of crap that's going on. So I really try not to do that and try to prevent, a lot of positivity. But at the same time, it can be really real that so many of us deal with depression, anxiety, trauma from the past, family issues, relationship stuff going on. And we juggle a lot. So those types of things, they always come up. And I tell you, if you want to have a transformational experience, start a business.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I agree.
Stuff like almost nothing else will. Parenting and starting a business will have you deal with your stuff, basically.
Right. Absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. So
Okay.
what's this? Liana is saying something about audio production.
I think
Relationship
she's
marketing
saying
plus content marketing.
not audio production. Okay, naughty. I think
Naughty,
it's
okay.
masquerading as an audio production company. That's what she's saying. Naughty.
We call
Cute.
that marketing there. No?
Yes. Just to give you a little bit of background, Liana Haley is actually from the creative production background. She works with, production studios and stuff like that. Just to share with you.
Fantastic. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And she even approves my mic, which I took out today because of you, Tina. Kind of thing.
But actually, just
No,
as we're
it's a
talking about this-
Boya.
Yeah,
It's a Boya.
my
It's my
first
budget
experience-
version. Yeah.
my first experience when it comes to audio stuff, audiobook is actually a book. Have you heard of The Alchemist?
I love The Alchemist.
By Paulo Coelho,
Yes.
right? So, somebody actually, it was a gift from someone, and it was an audiobook of The Alchemist, and it was read by Jeremy Irons. It's a brilliant, it's like when you have Jeremy
Marketing.
Irons voice
Yeah.
reading
That's
The
like-
Alchemist.
That's
It's like
getting
another level.
Yeah, that's
like getting James Earl Jones, the voice of God, or kind of thing, to read your book. That's like God reading your book. That's like leadership, authority 101 kind of thing to endorse your book. If you think about it.
And when the first time, that was like 10, 15 years back when I first heard that. And one of the questions I asked at that time was like, how come nobody is pushing this out? How come nobody is actually focusing on doing audio? Because you know what? It makes life so easy because I can just drive to the office and I can just listen to this. And here you are, you have like Tina doing this right now. Is that what you actually do?
Yeah. So like I said, the one division of our company, it produces and publishes and distributes nonfiction audiobooks. So we really, everything related to that, whether it is professionally narrated or it is the author narrating it. We work with both sides of that. But I want to touch on something that you said, what their voices, and it's like the voice of God endorsing your work and your book. I want to just unpack that for a little bit because it's really important. One of the things we talk about a lot, and I teach and coach on a lot, is vocal leadership. And both of you alluded to, like, here's Jeremy Irons, here's James Earl Jones, Morgan Freeman gets cited a lot in this category.
As
It's
God,
like,
yeah.
it brings you so much credibility. Why? These dudes are actors. They actually don't have any credibility in any field at all. They're actors. And yet we think about their voices as being so credible and so trustworthy that we believe everything that they say. And that's what I want to point out, is that there are qualities of the voice that have nothing to do with what you say, with your background, with who you are, with what you have to say, that have people believe you.
Wow. Okay. That's a question at the bottom, but I want to bring it up to the front now. So what are those qualities? So this is what you mean by vocal leadership, right?
Partially. It's a good entry point to the conversation.
Yeah. So what is vocal leadership, if you could explain? And what are some of these qualities that give you credibility and trust? Because I want to sound like God or goddess. Okay.
Goddess.
Yeah. And is there any hope for people like me, where I sound more like a duck?
Absolutely. Yeah. And your voice is fine. That's the thing. You have to learn how to own your voice, and that's part of it. So imagine that we all have two voices. So I'm going to explain what vocal leadership is through a little bit of storytelling here. Imagine that we have two voices. We have an outer voice, and we're actually going to call that our small V voice. The small V voice is the voice that you have, the voice that people hear. It is the external voice. Now that is our instrument, like a trumpet or a violin. Then we have a big V voice. The big V voice is the voices or big voice that live inside you. That's our big V voice. Now you have to imagine that's the music. Wow. Every one of us is the musician.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Become a virtuoso, you need to learn to play the instrument, and you need to learn how to write the music and to understand the music that you're playing. And when those two things become harmony and they act in harmony, you become a virtuoso. And when you are listening to a virtuoso, that you are in the presence of something that is more than the sum of its parts. And that is, inside of that is the process of becoming a vocal leader or developing your own personal vocal leadership. So that's the best way that I could explain it.
Wow, that sounds almost like a journey within kind of thing. And because as
it's a dance, external, internal.
Wow. As you were speaking, my heart was just like, kind of thing, like it makes sense. Everything makes sense kind of thing. So how does one learn this? It is something that we can learn it, right?
Yeah, it's totally something you can learn. And many folks want to learn, okay, well, how do I make my voice sound better? Or how do I become more credible in my speaking voice? And there's a few characteristics we can start with and some simple exercises we can start with on that particular journey. And I do have something called a vocal leadership workout that I give away all the time. So if you're on any of the social medias and you want to reach out to me and you want a copy of that PDF, you're welcome to reach out. We'll just send it to you. And so there are several qualities that are shown in research to increase your credibility and trustworthiness just through your voice. One of them that you mentioned with Jeremy Irons, it shows up with Morgan Freeman, it shows up with James Earl Jones, is pitch. We are biologically wired to trust lower voices. And so this is something we have to actually watch in ourselves is, are we trusting them simply because they look and sound like an authority, or are they actually and authority.
Ah,
So there's
okay.
a critical thinking point right there.
Mhm.
So there was a really weird, wild study done by Yale. It was almost 900 CEOs, and they found that CEOs with lower voices led larger teams, had longer tenure, were conceived and perceived as stronger, better leaders just on the quality of their pitch alone. And on average, they made $180,000 a year more than a higher voiced counterpart.
Wow. Okay.
Now, not
Okay.
everybody has a low voice, because that's usually like, oh my God, I don't have a low voice. What am I going to do? Don't panic. There's lots of other even more important characteristics. The most important characteristic in vocal leadership, when we're talking about the voice, is tempo. And why tempo is so important is it indicates if somebody's breathing is on point. And when we perceive that somebody's breathing is smooth and their tempo is natural and it just kind of flows, that means that they're in their own flow state. We perceive this biologically. We perceive this with all of our senses. And it's like, okay, they're all good because they're not breathing fast and all jerked up, and they're not kind of like
Psycho.
not knowing what they're doing. Right. So there's this center flow, this tempo that is really important. And some people are faster and some people are slower. It's your natural tempo where your breathing is in and out, like the tide, like the waves.
Mhm.
And that gets you going. And that also interplays with articulation, which is the clarity of your voice. And with things like the flow, as I mentioned before, with how I mean, ums and ahs naturally come into vocal speaking and all of that when there's too many of them. A lot of times you hear in speaking, oh, you can't do any ums, you can't do any ahs. No, we all do it. I just did it a bunch of times. And the more you think about it, the more you do it. However, if you learn more of the flow and you learn how to use the power of the pause and you become really grounded in what you're talking about, which is the internal conversation,
Mhm.
then the flow comes a lot more naturally.
Mhm.
There's also some other vocal things that are kind of credibility killers we could touch on if you want, but I just want to pause there because I tend to be a bit of a fire hose. So I'll give a minute.
Okay, cool. So Haley is actually saying that's true because in TV production, they actually use the vibrating low voices for TV promos. And then Erwan Junaidi, or Rogue as we call him, actually said, yesterday I ventured into a clubhouse room and there was a dude who spoke in low drawl and he sounded like a psychopath. So he left the room quietly. Can you explain about psychopath sounds?
Well, he probably spoke in a bit of a monotone. So, Erwan, I'd be very curious about this. So when we pair a low voice with monotone and we get down here and we don't change the pitch and we kind of speak down like this, you sound like a nut bar.
I think Anthony Hopkins did that in Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
There you go. That scared a lot of people. Let's just put it that way.
Oh.
Yeah. Really.
Wow.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Can you imagine Anthony Hopkins? There's the famous line is, I ate his liver with a glass of Chianti and some fava beans, right? Very low monotone. Yeah. Can you imagine if he had said it? So I ate his liver with some Chianti and and some fava beans.
Awesome.
Totally changed.
Totally changed the mood.
Okay.
So everyone is saying exactly. He's spoken in monotone. Tina, you are so good.
So
you were in the room. Good one.
Yeah.
So we have tone. Yeah, we have tone. How about accent? Like, will that? Yeah, will that affect too? Because
you know when you say something in a certain accent, it immediately does. Like, okay, I'm so sorry. This is probably because of all the films that I watch, and I watch a lot of American films. So if you were to say something in Arabic, immediately it sounds scary, like a bomb is gonna explode. That's one of the stand-up comedies I heard. But you have to end the Arabic word with a strawberry, and then it's okay. It makes it all okay. So you go, and then suddenly strawberry.
Cultural context. Strawberries.
Yes.
There's a lot of cultural context when it comes to voice. It really is. In the U.S., because I'm here, I'll speak to my own biases.
Mhm.
That is a Jordan Peele movie. You're right. Oh Lord. Oh man.
You didn't expect to cry with us, did you?
Oh no, I'm happy that I am. This is a perfect way to start the day. I appreciate it. What were we talking about? Accents. Yes.
Yes,
So
Accents,
I'm here
accents.
in the US, and of course, cultural bias is everywhere. And in the US, if you hear a British voice, particularly what would be considered a posh British voice, there's a lot of authority that gets carried there.
Yes.
Australian as well, except Australian is like credibility with sex.
Ooh,
And this
really?
this is how
really?
One of the
perception.
Hemsworth brothers.
Oh.
I knew it.
Same with Scotland, and a lower voice and things like that. However, when we're talking about global, what we would consider accents, and really who has the accent, right? So
Mhm.
accents are one of those things that, okay, this is where it sounds like you're from. Right. And even in the US, we have regionalisms. In the UK, there's a gazillion regional dialects. In, in Africa, in Asia, and all of that, there's a lot of nuances that if you're not from that place, you wouldn't even hear. You won't even pick up on it.
Right.
So I like to allay people's fears about their accent. What's most important is that we are able, your audience is able to understand you. So if it depends on the audience you're speaking to, if you're and in any case, working on your articulation, your flow, your tempo is important. If I'm speaking in New York, I'm originally from the Buffalo, New York area, which is the opposite end of New York City. It's an 8-hour drive. It's actually a much bigger state than people realize. Somebody from Buffalo, New York sounds very different than somebody from New York City. And in New York City, there's a whole bunch of regionalisms. Then the Midwest, then California, then the South. I mean, it's all over the place. And we have natural biases. So you don't need to worry about other people's biases. Only concern yourself with your own bias. And most people are biased against themselves.
Oh.
We're more concerned about, are they going to understand me, than really owning who you are. And it's more important to own who you are and to own what your natural voice is and to own your expertise and hone your instrument than it is to concern yourself with what other people are going to think about you. Because the more you learn how to play your own music and become that virtuoso, the more any audience is going to respond to you because of how you show up in your presence. And presence is universal.
Wow. Okay, that's
I have a
powerful.
follow-up question on this. This is powerful. This is powerful. This is powerful. I love this. What's stopping aspiring thought leaders to own their voice? Based on experience, based on your observation, based on what you see, right? If there is a top 5 list on what's stopping them, what would that be for you?
Top 5 list. Well, the most thing is our own internal fears. And those internal fears can take a bunch of different forms. It's a little bit like ice cream. You know, you walk into an ice cream shop and there's 30 different flavors. There are many flavors of fear as there are ice cream, but they're all just a little bit different. So your internal conversation, or I like to refer to it as a loop. Right. When I'm old enough that I would say it's a tape on a loop, but it might just be, on a repeat. And it might be, who am I to be doing this? I'm not good enough to be doing this. I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not whatever. Right. Usually it's some form of I'm not enough. The other area is that you haven't had the practice. And so I have probably been on 50 or 60 podcasts minimum. I've been speaking on stages for years. So you actually build up a muscle. It's just like learning any other skill. When you walk into a martial arts studio or you walk into training for a marathon, you don't do it the first day. You don't do it the first week. You don't do it the first month. You don't do it the first year. So you have to give yourself tons of space tons of room. I'm actually in a big learning curve right now. This is funny that this came up. Look at this. Here's my little sign next to me.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm having to remember to give myself more space in this large learning curve I am as a CEO, and my team doubling in size in a short period of time, right? So Rivan actually makes a really good point. Can we adopt other people's voices of our own? And this is one of the things about being a leader that I've learned that I find is a privilege and I find very motivating. I have a regular basis. People adopt some of my voice, some of the things I say, not that, as their own, as they're learning their own voice. And that's okay too. You just got to be conscious about it. You can experiment with your voice. You try on other things, see how it fits like a suit of clothes, because we're always learning from the inside who we are. We're always mining and unearthing and like discovering who we are. And we're never a finished product. So if it's fake, it feels fake. It feels foreign. And that's different than feeling like, oh, I'm trying on this way of being or this way of speaking, and I like it. It actually feels good. It actually feels like it could be a part of me, right? And that's why the old saying goes, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Right.
Because someone sees something in you that they want for themselves. So there's definitely a place for that.
Okay. So we can follow it and adopt it as ours kind of thing. Okay. I mean, any questions? With respect to Tina, I have a question. So you teach this vocal leadership thing?
Vocal leadership is something that I do work with people one-on-one, and usually CEOs and executives. And I do have some written pieces on it as well that I've done for Forbes. And of course, the vocal leadership workout we give away. We also, to the extent that they want to work on it with our podcast hosts. And as they're developing their shows and over time wanting to go, deeper into those arenas of that vocal leadership.
Okay, got it. So let's move on to podcasts. I mean, is that okay? Yeah, because one of the questions that Malcolm actually asked is, well, even before we start podcasting, actually, I would like to ask your story. How were you introduced to podcasting, and how did you manage to grow your podcast to one of the top 35 podcasts for entrepreneurs? That's amazing.
I will tell you the true story on this. A lot of people would just gloss over this, but I like to pull back the curtain and demystify how some of this stuff gets done. All right. So I started connecting with colleagues and being introduced to people to be on their shows back in 2013. This is early podcasting, more kind of online radio. It was even being called back then. And I grew up with a microphone in my hand, as I mentioned. I love having these conversations and speaking. So I do have a lot of skill and talent already in this arena. I naturally am lending myself to this arena. So everybody would ask me, every show that I was on, why don't you have your own show? Why don't you have your own podcast? And I really resisted it for a long time. Partially because I have high standards, and I was like, oh, I didn't really want to do it like everybody else. And part of it was I didn't want to deal with the technical aspect of it. So I ended up hiring a company that was recommended to me, and they were the absolute right company. They are wonderful people. I still recommend them today. They're called Cashflow Podcasting, and they work a lot with individual consultants, coaches, financial advisors, and things like that. We work more on the business corporate side. So we're actually consider each other's kind of sister companies. But they really helped me, took care of all of the technical. I felt so cared for. And then I already had a big network. So when I reached out to folks to start interviewing, my first 3 people that I interviewed were Dr. John DeMartini, who has a presence in probably over some ridiculous 50, 60 countries in the world and a following in the multiple millions. Tom, whose last name escapes me. Oh, forgive me, Tom, who used to be a producer for Michael Jackson, Cher, Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
He was one of the executive producers on the song "We Are the World." If those of you old
Mm-hmm.
enough to remember that, he was a
Mm-hmm.
major music producer. And Marcy Shimoff, who is a multiple-time New York Times bestselling author and one of the speakers from the movie The Secret. So I
Mm-hmm.
launched with 3 really amazing people, which didn't give me a ton of listens. A lot of people think that if you interview a celebrity, people will listen to it. That actually isn't true. It is not true. There's a lot of celebrities doing a lot of things in a lot of places. However, it did give me a lot of credibility, and it was the consistency of developing that show. One of the guests I ended up having was a columnist for Inc. magazine. And she loved the
Wow.
show so much and had such a great experience on it. And there's some elements that I included. I can share about some of the things we do uniquely in podcasting. That she had been tasked with doing this article on the top shows for entrepreneurs and included my show in that list. That's how that
Wow.
happened.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So interviewing the right people, which goes to the next question. How do you get featured on other people's podcast?
Being, the number one rule of getting interviewed and being media is be an awesome person. And here's a couple of things I mean by that. And okay, yes, I'm calling myself an awesome person. I'll just leave that out there. But what I mean by that is that you have to be concerned with what they're concerned with. If you're pitching yourself onto a podcast, you want to know the podcast. You want to understand the audience. You want to speak to their interests in it. So their interests are going to be, is it going to be relevant for their audience? What value are you going to be providing? And do you know how to play by the rules of podcasting, which is you're not pitching, you're not being salesy, you're actually willing to be in the flow of conversation, and you're going to promote your episode because you're an awesome person. And so those are some of the things that a host needs to know. And sometimes when we're working with executives on their thought leadership or business owners, and they want to be using podcast guesting and they want to be doing it in-house rather than working with an agency, we can work with them on a consulting basis to build that process, that system for their in-house systems and their pitches out to shows. So it's a really good way of getting involved in podcasting. But the most low-hanging fruit for podcasting is playing what I call the who do you know game. And that's going out to your local network and just saying, I'd love to be talking with people about this, this, and this. Who do you know that might have a show or a podcast that's relevant to that?
Okay, fantastic. At which
Fantastic
point,
tip.
yeah, love it. At which point do you think, what are some of the ways that podcasts can be used to develop one's audience, income, and influence specifically?
Yeah, so the way that we do it is we have this wonderful combination of relationship marketing, influence marketing, content marketing, and overall we're really making sure that the brand has a voice. So we will dig in and talk with the marketing part of the company or with the CEO, depending on whoever's handling the marketing, about making podcasting part of their overall marketing picture, right? So developing the positioning of the show, the type of content of the show, and then how the content of the show gets used are 3 really important components. So you're positioning your podcast as it could be a short podcast. It could be 8, 10, 12 episodes, and that's it. Or it can be an ongoing show. It could be solo, it could be interview, it could be panel style. There's a lot of different options on style, but the positioning on how you are making your brand a person. You're making your brand a voice that then you do create this intimacy through these wonderful, earbuds we're all listening to, because that voice, just like in audiobooks too, the voice goes directly into your brain. There is some serious neurological impacts on what we listen to and how it affects our day, our mood, our decision making. They say that we're the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? If you're spending a lot of time listening to podcasts, that has an influence on your behavior. It might even be, maybe in a very subconscious way.
Mhm.
So this is where it becomes important in the design of the podcast to do that. So fast forwarding to more of the how does the podcast get used? How do you get ROI out of a podcast? Then we're looking at a couple of different things. One is going to be, what guests are you choosing? I don't like the business model where you only interview people that could be your clients and then you try to sell to them. That has some consequences to it over time. It's disingenuous.
Mhm.
But if you're talking with people who you want to be developing relationships with, podcasting can definitely open the door for a lot of collaboration, new colleagues, new networks, new opportunities. And we always have our clients, we highly recommend, and we give them tools to do this, to follow up with their guests afterwards to develop the relationship further, and however that looks. And sometimes it does turn into them being a client. It really just depends on the industry that they're in. But the other place is repurposing your content. We want to use your podcast to give you beautiful SEO, organic SEO, with gorgeous transcripts and click to tweets and images and social media posts and audiograms and all kinds of things that you can use. A lot of our clients will use their podcast content and then have a staff writer write an article out of it for an industry magazine like Accounting Today
Wow.
or another well-known industry magazine. It's a beautiful place to create consistent content, particularly if you've got people who are, relationship focused in their industry.
Mhm.
And as you're developing, and as these hosts are developing their vocal leadership, that also potentially opens doors for them for additional speaking at events, conferences, and other industry places, because now they have some cachet as media in their industry.
Mhm.
So these are, we can go on and on because we haven't even touched on
Mhm.
things like internal podcasting, because that's a larger company thing, or the
Mm.
impacts of guesting. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Wow, that I totally get it, but I love how you're repurposing the content, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, any questions on this? There is a question. Go on.
I just have a thought on this. I didn't know that just focusing on audio, one area, there's so many angles to it. There's
You
the
can
book
create
side,
all of your
there's the thought
marketing
leadership.
assets from a podcast.
Yeah.
Mm.
Every single one.
Wow.
I have a question. Is it easier to get guests for a podcast than for a show? Because it's easy to jump on psychologically, I guess, without needing to look good or whatever.
There is that aspect. It depends on the industry and who you're reaching out to. Some folks do have some challenges, if particularly if they're high authorities in their fields, but they don't do a lot of media. And so, they don't know about having a little halo light or having a professional microphone or, what to wear or how to feel, or even just being nervous about it. So when our clients or potential clients come to us and say, well, can we do audio and video at the same time? We say not to start. We can capture the video, but you really want to get comfortable with the audio format and being natural on an audio format, because adding video, as you guys know, adds a whole other layer of production.
Mhm.
And depending on the production quality you want, you can get into all kinds of issues, particularly with preparing a guest.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
makes
have
sense.
another question. It's interesting that you talk about industry. Now I've been hearing podcast. I've been listening to podcasts for quite some time. And every time when I listen to podcasts, I know there's a certain industry that's really using podcasts as a way for them to build themselves as a brand and to show themselves as a thought leader. So we have coaches, trainers, right? Lifestyle, comedy. I'm curious to know if there are unique industry in your point of view, in your experience, that we never thought before, right? Like, have you encountered any industry, like maybe, um, have we seen mechanics having their own podcast?
Yes.
Tina
Yeah.
works in 20 industries, right? You were saying?
Well,
You
as
have
a consultant
clients.
and coach, I worked in more than 20 different industries. In podcasting, I actually haven't counted, but part of what we're known for is helping traditionally kind of dry industry topics, develop podcasts that are more interesting. We have a company that is in insurance, and they do a lot of risk management. So we have the Risk Playbook is their podcast. We have 2 specialty tax companies, the Unique CPA and Tax Warrior Perspectives. We have a couple of wealth management companies, the Wealthcast and Decision Dialogues. So there's any industry can have a show about it and make it interesting. It all depends on the conversation, and usually the people who are doing the show are so passionate about their industry that really translates, and they're speaking to a specific audience. So there's a big difference between a podcast like Seth Rogen or even Tim Ferriss, who their audience is broad, extremely broad. Brene Brown, extremely broad audience, and also had a huge audience before they started podcasting. The type of podcasting that we're talking about is much more niche. We're reaching specific people, and the numbers that we're going for aren't huge numbers of downloads. What we're looking for is to reach a specific audience, to develop influence in their industry, and to develop really powerful marketing assets that are evergreen, that can be used
Love
for
it.
purpose. Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Really loving it. Okay, I have a question. I mean, any more questions on that?
I have a lot actually. We have not covered a lot. So we
Okay,
have like 10
just
more
to let you
minutes.
know, we've got 9 more minutes. Okay, so you better ask your important ones before I wrap it up, kind of thing.
Yeah, so we are now just covering podcasts because we haven't even gone into audiobooks yet. You want to start going to that first?
Okay,
Maybe
yes.
just-
I
yeah.
have a question. How do you determine if an audiobook publication is a good fit to your book, if you have one? And what are the different options for audiobook publication?
Sure, absolutely. So an audiobook is going to be good if you have a narrative in your book. So most nonfiction certainly fiction is good. We're a nonfiction house, but fiction always is a good fit for an audiobook. Nonfiction, memoir, business, spirituality, self-help, all of those are great fits. Those are usually the top categories, and true crime and memoir are actually very similar. Those are all really, really great. If it's a technical manual, a cookbook, those types of things don't translate as well to audio. But if you're going for accessibility, depending on the markets that you're in, you can do some audio adaptation. It just looks and sounds a little bit different. It might not be a traditional audiobook. Children's audiobooks are very, very popular. We do not produce children's audiobooks because they are so short. Our business model just doesn't fit. But if there are any children's authors out there who hear this, I don't want to dissuade
Discourage.
you from doing that. It's just it's a different animal, and you wouldn't work with a company like us. You would probably do more of a do-it-yourself, not that you would narrate it, but that you would go out and find your narrator. So that brings me to the different ways of distributing audiobooks. So the 2 platforms, if you are self-publishing, that you can use are acx.com. It stands for Audiobook Creation Exchange. That is the back end, the self-serve version of Audible. Audible is the largest audiobook distributor in the world. They have about 60% of the market share worldwide.
Wow. Okay.
However, if you can only use ACX if you're in the US, Canada, the UK, Ireland. I think that's it.
Okay.
And those countries. So if you're outside of those countries, then you definitely want to use a company called Findaway Voices, findawayvoices.com. So they are international. They for self-published authors. And that is where you would distribute your audiobook. And both of those platforms have do-it-yourself options for finding narrators as well. That could help in those arenas. If you want to do your audiobook yourself, please don't.
You mean to narrate it yourself?
Yes. If you want to narrate
Okay.
your audiobook yourself, please don't without professional help. Okay. Whether
Why?
it's us or somebody else who is experienced specifically in audiobooks. If they're a public speaker, if they're a music production house, if they do voiceover work in their studio, but they don't do audiobooks, do not work with them. Audiobooks are a different animal with different technical requirements. We get files monthly from people who say, can you just distribute this for me? And it's like, yes, we have to check your files. 100% of the time, there's something wrong with the files that prevents us from being able to publish them. 100% of the time.
Wow.
So
Okay.
you just got to work with people who specialize in audiobooks, whether it's us or somebody else, but please don't do it on your own.
I'm
I have a
curious to
question.
know. Wait, hold on. Yeah, I have a interesting
5 more minutes.
question to ask, because my experience of audiobook is just one person narrating it and reading it.
Yes.
So when I first heard the Jeremy Iron thing, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, I don't know, Nina, if you experienced this before. During the 80s when I was growing up,
Yeah.
when I was listening to the radio, right?
Even
we
in
have, like,
British
different-
radio, voice actors acting out the
Yeah.
scene.
Radio
Yeah.
drama.
Yes.
Correct.
There you go.
Right. So
Radio
do we
drama has
have
made
that
a
kind of-
huge comeback. Yeah.
Wow.
Radio drama has made a huge comeback. You'll see it a lot in fiction podcasts, true crime podcasts, horror podcasts. And in the way it shows up in audiobooks is there is such a thing as a full cast audiobook. Absolutely. I believe somebody mentioned one of Neil Gaiman's books, Sandman, earlier. Neil Gaiman
Yes,
is known
yes.
for doing full cast recordings. So in fiction,
Wow.
you will see it, and it's brilliant. You will hear it, I
Mhm.
should say. In nonfiction, the way that we do it, we because we are a full service house, we will do multiple narrator projects. We produced a beautiful memoir of the aftermath, actually, of the Holocaust, called Two Pieces of Cloth. It was 3 narrators and also original music that we were able to cut in.
Wow. Okay.
We did another memoir, one of the top eye surgeons in the country. His name is Dr. Ming Wang, about his immigration story and also his work with patients, which has been groundbreaking.
Mhm.
And that not only included original music, it also included audio off of news clips and other video clips from that we were able to pull the audio from and weave into the narrative
Mhm.
of the audiobook as well. So yeah, we're able to do all those kinds of things. Full cast recording in terms of fiction is a much more challenging animal. And like I said, we're a nonfiction house, but boy, is it amazing when it gets done. It's usually the bigger traditional publishing houses that take on those projects.
Okay, got it. 3 minutes left, Amien. So can I wrap it up, Amien?
Yeah. Okay. One more question before you wrap this
Okay.
up, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going back to the foundations of thought leadership now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's just say I want to start doing my own podcast, right? And maybe, or what should I focus on? Should I focus on my voice? Should I focus on, I just want to start doing something, right? If there's any tips that you can give
Sure.
to us, right? 3 tips to start out, right?
Okay.
What would that
3
be?
tips.
Yes.
One is really consider why you want to do it. Podcasting is a lot of work, particularly doing it on your own. And so you want to really make sure that you have a strong why and you have a strong central sense of what you want to talk about. The second thing is that you want to plan out at least your first 12 episodes. Most podcasts don't last longer than 4 or 5 episodes. It's called pod fade.
Ooh,
So you
okay.
want to map out at least your first 12 episodes, and at least it doesn't have to be in detail, but to have a sense of what you're doing and who you want to talk to and what kind of message that you want to have. The third thing is if you're doing an interview show, the number one mistake I see new hosts making is what I call giving away your platform. Your show needs to be about those topics that are important to you, to the things that you want to be teaching, that you stand for, your values, particularly if you're using your podcast as an avenue to grow thought leadership. You need to know what your thought leadership is, and your podcast can explore your thought leadership, right? But you want to have some guidance in doing that, exactly like a TV show or exactly like any other kind of series. You want to have that mapped out, at least in broad strokes. And then who are you going to be in the matter? If you're having guests on, the conversation needs to be about how they're adding to the conversation, not just you sitting there interviewing them. Like, you guys are very conversational. You can see your personal interests. You have a strong context for the value that you're providing your audience. You are just as much the feature of the show as your guest is. And that's really important.
Okay, so that we're not giving it away.
Right.
Okay, one more question. What if we don't like our sound when we're speaking? That seems to be a lot of people's problem.
A lot of people have that issue. About 80% of people will raise their hands in a room when I'm speaking, and I say, who here doesn't like the sound of their own voice? A lot of it is getting used to it, because what you sound like to yourself inside, and when you hear yourself recording, it's jarring. So you have to get used to it. The second thing, so it's practice. It's practice in speaking, and it's practice in getting used to the sound of your own voice. And then other than that, treating your voice like the instrument that it is. Do tongue twisters, breathing exercises, practice meditation, and get further into some of the, vocal leadership, vocal training side of things to start smoothing things out.
Okay, 2 more questions very, very quickly. Where do you see opportunities for companies in this area? What are the trends happening, and how can they best prepare for this?
So the real opportunity for companies right now, particularly, are in podcasting, and in looking at podcasting as a medium to create deeper, richer, more trusted relationships with their audience. As the younger generation comes up, Gen Z is not going to take any crap. They are listening for, I tell this from my kids, they are listen and they can ferret out people who are untrustworthy. And they're very used to doing that. And they are skeptical as all get out. So podcasting is a way to help build authentic relationships and put a voice and a face on a company that might otherwise feel cold and corporate, to bring leaders to the forefront, to bring voices to the forefront, and to also to do better representation of underserved and underheard voices, to bring out diversity in our companies, to bring out the richness of the culture. All of this is possible through podcasting. And quite honestly, podcasting is less expensive, less production heavy than professional video production. And you can create far more marketing assets from a single podcast than you can from a short video. And we can have a whole other conversation sometime about how to pair audio and video together, because I love video, and it's just use it a little bit differently. So
okay, got it.
It's all good.
Okay, last question. Moving forward, what are your plans? What's next for Tina Dietz?
What's next for Tina Dietz is we are actually working on a personal thought leadership archetype assessment for people who want to go deeper into their own understanding and developing their thought leadership. And we are using the 12 universal human archetypes to help people access that and embody their thought leadership so that it becomes easier, more effective, and just better to get your message out there and to get your company's message out there as well. So whether it's an individual or a company, this works either way. So we're going to be releasing that in just the next couple of weeks. So if anybody connects with me on social media and all that, we'll be making announcements about that in the next month.
All right. Thank you so much. I think that was so powerful. We learned so much. There's so many similarities, I think, with what we believe in, Amien.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that we have not explored yet. I think.
And I think we just scratched the surface. Tina, it feels like we don't have enough time, but you know what? Thank you so much, Tina. I think we definitely want to be speaking to you later on as well, in the future as well, and invite you back. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. We're very, very grateful, kind of thing. And guys, what is the biggest thing that you learned? Let us know in the comment section, so that so that we know where you guys are at. And another thing, please make sure you're following Tina on LinkedIn. Yeah, Tina?
Yep. Absolutely. That would be great.
And connect with her so that you can get the stuff that, she just shared with you. Yeah. Haley just sent you a connection request, Liana, kind of thing. So Tina, thank you so much. I think
my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Definitely want to keep in touch with you. And thank you so much for spending time with us. Can she come back? That's a question from Haley.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for that. That means a lot to
Okay.
me.
All right. So we will definitely keep in touch here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
so
Have
much.
a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Tina for
Same to you.
president. Yes, I agree.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
I'm not that crazy, but thank you.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, Tina, I'm going to come to the back first. If you need to
All right,
leave.
have a good one.
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
care.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. All right, guys. So if you're tuning in, what is the biggest thing that you learned today? Let us know in the comment section so that we can see where you guys are at. While waiting for your comment, just a couple of reminders. Next week, we will be having Rancia Sanvira, who is a parenting, marriage, and child counselor, founder of Mama Life with 3.6 million followers in TikTok. And she's going to be sharing about how she grew her business using TikTok. And she's going to be sharing with us some of her tips. Okay. Next month, I have no idea what's happening because I've yet to get you speakers, guys. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Okay. We love you. Thank you so much. What's your biggest learning?
I'm going to use back what Tina said just now. Guys, if you have anyone that is a thought leader that you think that we need to speak to, let us know. Okay, we'll approach them and figure it out.
I want more Tina. Okay, there you go. Send Tina a message and tell her that, guys. But yeah, what was your biggest learning today? I mean, what was your biggest learning from today's session?
I think the emphasis on knowing. I like the idea of having 12 episodes and really plan out the 12 episode first for those of you who really want to start. Right, I didn't think of that. Say, I think 12 is a good number, and starting small and knowing why you want to do it. Right,
I think that's the basic. Exactly. That's exactly what we teach you guys. Before you even kick off your show, you need to know why. Understand your brand. What is it that you want to do? And it's exactly like what Tina says. You don't want to give your platform away because you need to know your why and be invested and be the star of the show. Because don't forget, it is your show. Why do it if you're not going to be the star of the show and you're just going to give it away, right? Talking, because we're always bitch slapping you anyway, right?
Yeah, but I really like that structure. 12, start with 12, because when we started, I have no number. I just jalan lah.
That was Amien, and then I came in and I was like, so low quality. Let me sort it out. So then I started getting in, and we started out. But this year I've been sloppy. So let us know who you want us to interview. Another thing that I thought was so powerful, which was super deep, was that voice, that V voice, kind of thing, and how you gotta let that thing out and it becomes sort of like an instrument and harmonized. Whoa. And she actually said meditation, and I'm big on this thing, right? So I guess we gotta connect with our inner self so that we can find and be that voice that we need in the world. And another thing that I really loved, was that you cannot BULLSHIT the Generation Z, which is what I've been saying. Be yourself, provided that you have integrity and honesty, because they're not going to buy any bullshit from you. And mark my words, in terms of politics as well, I know the world is moving SHITTLYly, shitly. But you know what? I think the younger generation is going to come up and they're going to demand more from our leaders. So I think we have a lot of bucking up to do. That's all I can say. Yeah, that's what I think.
Itu deserve this one.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. One was saying explore and practice lower voices. I'm going to be practicing my trailer voice from now on. So yes, so I can build my thought leadership. Yep. Thank you so much. Watching popcorn. Okay, now I sound like a serial killer, and Rogue has quietly left the room. Oh, Rahim is there. He's saying, "Itu apa, Amin?" Entah. Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. We love you guys. We hope you got a lot of value from tonight, and we will see you same time, same place next week, 8:30 p.m. We love you. See you then.
Have a good weekend, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ka.